Do you remember that personal trainer who became rich doing online sessions, in-person coaching, selling nutrition programs, doing a podcast and a newsletter all at the same time? Precisely. Me neither. So today we're going to cover why you have to say no and how having fewer options brings much larger rewards. Let's get into it. So today's subject is why so many personal trainers stay stuck at the same income level despite being incredibly talented. So we'll go through FOMO and overwhelm, how focus creates breakthroughs, how you've got to go where the money is telling you to go, and don't give in to novelty. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a couple of takeaways that you can go home with. Now then, let's get into it. Now, I see many incredibly talented personal trainers, but there's something which divides the ones who are incredibly talented from the ones who are incredibly successful. And I'll put it like this. So lots of coaches, they do personal training sessions, they do online coaching, they do classes, they do challenges, they do retreats. You name it. There's always a new thing going on. But what you have to remember is each one of these steals your focus. You only have so much time and attention throughout the day. And talent creates a temptation. You could think, I could do this. Of course I can. I have the time, I have the talent, I have the energy. But being spread thin absolutely destroys momentum. And if you don't have momentum, you'll never break through into what it is you're trying to achieve, which for personal training is going out and trying to create a successful career. So what you have to do is you have to concentrate your energy and your attention like a magnifying glass from the sun. Your potential is the magnifying glass, and if you have only a small amount of potential, you have a small magnifying glass. There's nothing wrong with that. All the best things come in small boxes, as they say. But equally, if you have very large potential, you have a very large magnifying glass. However, what you have to remember is it doesn't matter what size of the magnifying glass you have, unless it's focused on a specific spot, nothing is going to catch fire. So, as a personal trainer, what you have to do is you have to focus on one specific thing. Now you can have specificities at different areas. So you might have something for your coaching. You might have something for the way that you want to acquire clients, the way that you want to do referrals and incentives and things like that. But you have to focus, because without that, it's not going to happen. Now then, next up, you have to go where the market is telling you to go. Now, look at where clients are consistently already asking for your attention. Maybe it's for strength coaching. Maybe they want you for fat loss. Maybe it's men's training. Maybe it's women's glute physique, whatever it is. But you have to stop forcing what you want on others. So I'll put it this way. Maybe you've got 3 doors, and you've got door 1, 2, and 3. And door 1 is very popular. But you keep trying to ask people, but why don't you buy doors 2 and 3? Go on, please. And they say, no, we just want door 1. So what do? Remove doors 2 and 3 altogether. Get them out of the way. And instead, focus on your attention on door 1 and make it bigger. Now, it's so tempting to think that more is better. But what you're actually doing is by focusing, you're magnifying the potential that you already have. You're allowing your potential to compound. You're allowing that door to get much larger rather than being spread so thin that you just stay stuck. You stay capped at where you are. So to put it simply, you have to double down on what's working. And if you're new to the market, which I'm sure that some of you are who are watching this, you obviously won't have that data yet. Yes, you can go off and see what's going on online and stuff like that, but I promise you primary data is always going to be much, much hotter than anything secondary. So I'll challenge you to work for free. Why not do 100 free classes, 100 free sessions with clients? That might take you a month, it might take you 3 or 4 months, but that's going to be so much more valuable. That data is going to be so much more valuable than trying to go off and monetize from the early days, and you're only being able to get a couple of sessions in. I promise you, get that data set, find out what works, find out where the demand is, and then monetize. That is the way that new coaches should come to the market. Do not try and monetize from day one. Do not try and force what you want them to do. It should be the other way around. Follow the demand. Don't push the demand. So next up, new ideas feel incredibly exciting. Of course they do. But every time you switch direction, what you do is you kill your momentum. Allow me to explain. So let's say you have your current baseline, and whenever you make a change, there's pretty much a guaranteed decrease in about 20% of performance. And even if the change is something that you feel is superior, you can pretty much be guaranteed that there's going to be that immediate decrease. Now, if I think the change is going to be worth a 5% improvement, then I'm going to take a guaranteed 20% drop in performance for a potential increase by 5%. Now, obviously that's a bad deal. Now, funnily enough, if you don't make any changes, you're likely to actually see that 5% increase compound over time, just as you get better at the thing that you're trying to execute upon, whether that's sales, whether that's a particular type of coaching, or whatever it may be. So for me, I need to have something which I feel has a 40% chance of increasing performance, and it has to have a 50% chance of succeeding in order for me to make that 20% risk in change. So without that, you are risking a significant decrease in performance with a very minimal degree of increase. So you have to do something. If you're gonna make a change, it's got to be a change that's worth it and that you feel it has a decent chance of succeeding over time. Now then, let's go through some key takeaways, shall we? So if you have this creative urge, you have to channel it into something that isn't going to destroy your business, isn't going to throw you off. So why not channel it into acquisition or content? These things where you can run these experiments, but they're not going to cost you your business. I'd also recommend keeping a list of ideas so that, rather than acting on them immediately, you can have them there. And if if you're down the shops a couple of weeks later and you still have this idea around what it is that you want to change, then you can probably be more confident that it's something worth doing. Now, only change direction if you have one of these ideas where you feel like it's a 40% plus idea that has a 50% chance or more of succeeding. Now, also what you have to remember is that most things will get better over time, just as your ability to execute upon it compounds. So don't make a change unless you feel it's necessary. So that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, I'd love it if you could subscribe, give us a like, give us write a comment, whatever it may be. Just something so that we know that you want more of this. Thank you very much, and see you in the next one.